Welcome to the Dave Palma Show, the podcast that revives, restores, and awakens your innermost capabilities.
You have the training and the talent to succeed, but do you have the guts to fail?
I love what I do. When you love what you do, you want to be the best at it.
Today is about the power of you. You will change the world.
Find your path to success through the journey of those who have succeeded. And now, your host, Dave Palma.
Hi, welcome back to the Dave Palma Show. And with me in this episode, I have someone who's an international speaker, author, and consultant to international executives and leaders. Steve Cockram, welcome to the Dave Palma Show.
Thank you, Dave. I love my English introductions far more than the American ones. They're much less embarrassing. So thank you for teeing me up to only be able to fail.
Well, I did forget to mention that you are also author of the Communication Code, so everybody knows now that you are, and you are pretty much by definition of this book a communication expert, I guess. What is your background, Steve?
Very good question. I would say that I everything we've learned, Dave, has really come out of failure and codifying that failure so other people can make different mistakes. So I laugh and say that I would be an international expert on relational intelligence, would have made an awful lot of my friends laugh had you met me at the age of 25, and probably my wife blush had we met us at the age of 30. So in a sense, I'm like the ultimate kind of poacher turned gamekeeper, which I think in some ways people find it easier to learn from, because in a sense, it's not that I've always got it right. It's more, you might as well make different mistakes than the ones we've already made. That's the theory behind it.
Right. Well, it's good to learn by your mistakes. It's good also to learn from other people's mistakes. In fact, we're always growing and learning, and that's what people should really understand is if you're a know-all and think, that's probably get found out somewhere, wouldn't you really? Well, let's move on with the work you do. What is your background anyway, first, Steve? I mean, obviously.
I've been everything from a high school teacher to a pastor to a nightclub owner to an entrepreneur, and for the last 15 years, I've been in really leadership coaching and development. And latterly, believe it or not, I'm a SaaS entrepreneur. We license intellectual property to independent coaches, consultants, and HR professionals around the world who use it to develop relational intelligence. So no one would ever build a resume like mine, but having been through those things, it's amazing how if you stitch it all together, you can sound very coherent and quite intelligent.
Well, I was just wondering what nightclub owners, obviously ones that's a bit of a stick out, sticks out a little bit. Very difficult, very different. But I might have come across your nightclub in my firefighting days off. Where was it?
It was in Manchester, in Oldham Street. Where we didn't have a fire. But I think I do come to the conclusion, having been in that business, that if you're not laundering money or selling drugs, it's very, very hard to make it break even. I'll leave it there.
All right, okay. Well, I've been
time ago. I had a lot of therapy.
We won't go into that one then. All right, okay. So let's stick with what you do. So okay. Well, that's recent work with the SARS and helping coaches, which obviously is something I'm obviously thinking of accelerating on. It's my goal this year because the pandemic actually turned it around, and actually this podcast became more popular. Tell us more about that, and then we can talk about the work you do in that realm.
Yeah. So 10 years ago, which seems a long time ago now, when Jeremie and I started Giant together, the thing we did, which was we did one thing that was really clever, and we did one thing that was typical of people of our age, in that our conclusion as history lovers was, whenever there is a technological revolution in history, in the West particularly, it changes the world of work. And when the world of work changes, the skills of leadership have to change with it. So whether that's the printing press and the Enlightenment, whether that's the Industrial Revolution and the steam, all of those things change society and work. And the belief we had was that the digital revolution was going to change the world of work. And so therefore, leaders would need to be equipped with different skills. I mean, Jeremie's previous company had owned John Maxwell's assets and various other gurus of the late industrial age, who we still read, by the way, and we're still good friends. But we actually interviewed as many leaders as we could find, Dave, and said, what are the 5 biggest challenges you're facing? And we tried to summarize them, codify them. And amazing, when you hear them now, it sounds pretty obvious. But 10 years ago, they weren't. So the first one was, how do I stay physically, emotionally, intellectually healthy in a world where work never stops? So that was a big difference in the industrial age. We're always on. Second is, how do I learn to lead through influence rather than rely on positional power alone? In the old days, it was very hierarchical. People did what they were told. The new world is a lot flatter, leaner, and the next generation wants to help influence decisions from day one. The third one was, and really interesting in relation to communication, how do I, if I'm going to communicate, the new world is visual. It demands immediate application and practical use immediately. So whatever you deliver, we found an educated 13-year-old had to be able to understand it, use it, teach their friends, or it just got overwhelmed in the tsunami of demand on most leaders' time. The fourth one was, how do I build agile collaborative teams rather than rely on the talents of particular individuals or superheroes? And the last one, 10 years ago, which will make us laugh, you were alluding to COVID, how do I lead teams that are digitally connected but geographically dispersed?
Yeah, that one.
So if you look at those now, most people go to us, well, of course. But actually 10 years ago, we said, okay, let's build a toolkit for leaders for the new world, rather than build them a bigger library. So that's what we've done, and trying to make everything visual because people remember it, and make it simple enough children could use. And now, of course, it's licensed to over 1,000 people, and it's used with some of the biggest companies in the world. Most of it is not brand new wisdom. There's not a lot of new stuff, Ecclesiastes says, but what we did is we made it visual, and therefore, because it's been codified, you can multiply it. So that's where Giant came from. That's what we did really well. Of course, what we didn't realize at the time was, for a digital world, you needed a digital platform. So the evolution 4 years ago of moving from consulting to SaaS and licensing, and critically as well, beginning to integrate platform and app applications so that people can take the learning with them wherever they go, rather than just have to always be in the same room together. There you go. I don't know whether that's helpful.
Well, it's a lot to take in all in one go, but
sorry,
that really explains how you got from consultant to building a digital platform as of today, really. So perhaps we can move on to first talk about your book, The Communication Code. That would be a good thing to cover, I think, on the show. This book was only released last year in November, wasn't it?
Yeah. We were the number one in all categories for Amazon for the 2 weeks of the release, which was pretty cool. Just shows that communication is way more than leadership. Every human being struggles with communication. So the basic premise, Dave, is to go that transmission of information is not the same as effective communication. In theory, we've never been bombarded with more information on a daily basis.
No, that's right.
Communication is far more than me sending you an email or sending you a video or just talking to you. Communication happens when the person on the other side of your transmission is able to understand the intent with which you use those words and respond in a way which shows that they've heard not just the words you used, but the intent and the expectations which lay behind that transmission of information. So once you get your head around that, does that make sense, first of all?
It makes sense, yeah. I always know that trust is a glue, is a very, very much a glue for relationships. So the intent side, if they're seeing it's not really good intention there, I feel that means they don't trust you, does it really? So I suppose that makes sense to that degree, doesn't it?
I think what we found was that my intent in the way I respond to your transmission can actually be really good. I'm trying to help, but if it isn't actually received by the person transmitting it in that way, then intent is never enough. And I think the reality was, if you look at the world we live in today, making long-term healthy relationships work is actually the exception, not the norm. And that's kind of like a slightly depressing statistic. The more you look at it, the average business lasts about 5 years, and most marriages or partnerships, very few of them make it all the way to the end. Certainly more don't make it. And the belief, nobody sets out on a journey of a business partnership, a special relationship, let alone a marriage, hoping that it breaks down. I mean, I was a pastor for years, and I would say the people I married, when they came for marriage prep, none of them sat on my couch, said, I really hope this ends in an acrimonious divorce, fighting over custody of the children, and really wishing we never met each other. So it's not, that's where people start off. But what usually happens, Dave, is that if you trace back why relationships don't work, it's always because communication breaks down. And there's nothing more depressing than when in a relationship where you're really trying, it still doesn't work. So for us, what Jeremy and I did was go, wouldn't it be amazing if we could send a communication code in advance of the transmission, which would give you an understanding of how I hoped you would respond? So that in a sense, I was giving you a way of decoding the message. So, the 5 of them begin with C. If I give you an example. So if I said, Dave, okay, I'm about to share something with you. This is a piece of work that's going live later today. Please, I'm inviting you to critique it. And critique means tell me why it's not going to work, do the due diligence, ask all the difficult questions, because I'm not precious right now. This is going to go live in 3 hours. And if there's mistakes, if there's errors, it's going to be way more costly than my ego of thinking I might have got something wrong. So critique, when sent in advance, is really helpful. But when critique is experienced as criticism, then you haven't really communicated effectively. Second one's collaborate. So I may say to you, Dave, I've got this brilliant idea, or I think it's brilliant. Here's how far I've got it. I think this could be a really great business innovation for you. But I know that it will be better if I get your superpowers to play. So full collaboration invited, build on what I've already got. Usually you need a bit more time to do collaboration well. If I said it's going live at lunchtime, you probably go, you're not really looking for collaboration, Steve. You're looking for me to bless it. Third one is clarify. So I might say to you, Dave, look, I know there's something I've got in here that's really valuable. It probably isn't going to come out fully or the first go. So please don't launch into collaborate or critique first. Would you ask some great questions and help pull out what I've got, and then we can work on it together. So ask great questions. Don't just assume that what I say first is the best I have. Would you help me get out what I'm trying to say? Care, which is an interesting one, says, and this is one I got horribly wrong, certainly at home. Care says this. It says, Dave, honestly, I'm just struggling right now. I don't really know what's wrong. Nothing I say is really what I mean. Don't try and solve me. Don't try and deal with the thing. I just need to know somebody who cares about me is willing to be present, to basically just be with me and not try and fix me. Yeah. So for me, I often go to Jeremie, my business partner, I go, Jeremie, look, I just need a safe place to throw off a few grenades. I'm going to kill somebody. I cannot believe they've done it. And I said, I just need a safe place where I can use soft and colourful language and go.
Sounds like my 8-year-old daughter, actually.
There you go. So,
it's probably like that.
I know he won't judge me because he'll do the same to me as a connector. He'll say, Steve, I need to get the poison out, which means when I actually I've already had a chance. And then the last one is celebrate, which is, Dave, I'm really, really excited about what's been achieved. There's something significant. I would really love us to just take a little bit of time, maybe over lunch or in a room. Would we make sure we celebrate well before we move on to our next activity? So the premise is a transmission of information does not guarantee communication. In fact, it's about 20% likely you'll manage it. Whereas if you actually send a communication code in advance of the transmission, the person understands your expectation and therefore can choose to respond to you in the way that you're inviting them to. Because if we don't have any communication codes today, what happens is we all respond with our default code. So my default is collaboration and critique. They're the two. If I'm just accidental, that's what you get. If that's the wrong communication code, then we end up missing each other. And the more different we are as personalities, the more likely we are to miss each other, particularly when we have no tools. So there you go. That's the whole book in a nutshell. But fundamentally, it's simple enough as a concept that you can use it in every area of your life. I use it at home, I use it at work, I use it in the community. And even if the person hasn't learned the communication codes, I've learned now to go, when somebody says to me, Steve, what do you think about this? I go, hang on, Dave, before I respond to you, what do you hope happens here? Are you just using me as a sounding board? Do you want me to listen? Do you want me to help make it better? Do you want me to tell you why it's not going to work? Give me some clues, which then means I'm much more likely to respond in a way that you find helpful, which means I appear more relationally intelligent, I have greater influence, and people really like me, which means they'll listen to what I'm going to say because I appear to be meeting them in the place where they actually feel, I feel heard, I feel valued, and I feel appreciated. And Steve seems to connect with me. I wish I'd had this 30 years ago, Dave. It would have been a lot easier.
Well, it's that saying, whether you're on the same page as someone or not, that kind of thing, really. Right. So, as a pastor, you have to be on the same page with him, otherwise you're in trouble, I suppose. It's that kind of thing, isn't it? Really, singing the same hymn together.
Well, I think
it's an analogy, isn't it?
Absolutely. I would say that the story I sometimes tell is the worst date night ever, because it shows people how it works. So Helen, my wife of 32 years now.
Oh well,
10 years.
Well, that's lasted a long time. So
it has.
Probably forever for you.
I've been happily married for all of them. Helen for on and off about the last 10, I think. Yeah, but that's another story.
All right.
Helen's just like, Steve, I'm really struggling. I just don't really know whether we can go out tonight. And I'm going, well, what's the matter? And she says, well, I'm struggling to know what to do with this, and I've got this issue, and I've got that issue. And I'm going like, well, this is your lucky night. This is what I do for a living. So I went into my office, wheeled out my whiteboard, brought it into the drawing room, put the 3 issues up on the board, and started going, well, this is going to be great, because I can already think of ways that we can address this issue. And Helen is now in tears. And she says, Steve, you have no idea. You do not get me at all. And I'm like going, you're right. I don't get you at all. You're telling me what your problems are or challenges are. I'm helping you. You don't understand. People pay me a lot of money to do this. You're lucky. I was only hoping for something nice at the end of the evening. But you're right. I don't get you. You don't get me. And it was like we didn't have anywhere else to go. So knowing what I know now, Helen was really saying, Steve, I just want you to care.
Yeah.
I don't need you to fix me. What I say is not going to bear any resemblance really to what's going on. I want to know the person I love most is willing to be present and just to be with me. Well, that's so alien to my way of operating, Dave. It's ridiculous. I mean, I'm always problem solving. So do you see what happened? We missed each other.
Yeah.
And it was almost like, I don't know what, I remember it being quite a low moment. So I'm really trying here. It's not me being an arse. I'm really trying to make this relationship work. But the more I try, the worse it gets. And that's the bit where it happens at work. It'll happen in any relationship in people's lives. So whenever I teach this stuff, everyone knows relationships in their life where they go, oh, this may make sense of the reason why we ended up drifting apart, or we ended up settling really for the fact, hey, the new normal is we don't really communicate effectively. And then it's only usually a matter of time before something goes wrong. Yeah.
Do you think taking a step back and riding things out, that tends to be a good idea, because nothing will really go in when you're heated up and things like that, does it really? The learning curve is more when your brain's in a certain place, isn't it?
But what? Yes and no. I'd say if unresolved tension in a relationship just keeps going, you may not mention it, but it hasn't really gone away. So, in court, when they go, Mr. Cockram is here, he's charged with this, and he'd like 38 previous offences to be taken into account. So what happens is, if we haven't resolved any of those past miscommunications,
they'll come back.
The moment I do something slightly wrong, or you do slightly wrong, I respond based on the evidence of 39 charges, not on the presenting issue.
Yeah.
So depending on where relationships are, Dave, we usually go, look, if the relationship is just normal, the communication code will work fine. If you've got real historical brokenness, whatever it is, you may actually need to deal with the past before you come into the present.
Mm.
And the past, in the book, it talks about this idea of asking somebody, if you really want to give another relationship a chance that you've almost given up on, something we often advise people to do is go out, find a quiet place and ask 4 questions, which is, what's it really been like living and working on the other side of me? You're not allowed to do anything other than ask questions and listen. It's a data gathering, not a defensive attitude. Is there a power imbalance that needs to be recognized? Because you often find with different personalities and different positions and different physical postures that there's often a power dynamic at play, which is unspoken. So I always say to people, it's a quick one with you. 999, which should be perfect for your previous career. If you ask the question, how, when you think of your personality, how dominant and how opinionated, how strong is the way you bring your opinion in any arena? So I'm a 9, okay? I'm a very forceful pioneer, ENCP, whatever you speak. And then we ask the question, what type of physical presence do you bring in a room? Your voice, your size, almost the charisma you fill space with. And in a sense, that's another high piece. Most males, if you're over 6 foot and this, that, and the other, and then you have positional power. Well, what's your role? What does society think of you? How much kudos do you carry and how much influence do you have? So if you're the CEO, founder, creator, writer, speaker, there's a lot of expectation. So I have a really high power rating, call it 999.
Yeah.
Helen, my wife, is an amazing lady, but basically is completely opposite to me. So her personality power, she's always thinking of other people, not herself. She never wants to be the center of attention. So maybe give her a 3. In terms of presence, she's very beautiful. So she has a presence in a room, but she's always thinking of others and she's not loud and she listens well. So we'll give her a 6. And then we have positional power. Well, Helen's a judge. So that comes with a fair amount of kudos. So everyone go like, oh, right, okay. So if you think we'll give her an 8 for that one because people respect that.
Yeah.
Do you think though 3 times 6 times 8 is about 130? 9 times 9 times 9 is over 700. So fundamentally what you have is, even in 2 really healthy people, you can sometimes have a power imbalance that you don't actually recognize. So I had to ask that question of Helen. She said, yeah, you overpower me at times. We don't mean to, but your very unconscious you is a very, very powerful force. And then I go, third question, has relational trust been broken in this relationship? And lastly, the one I love most, which is the hardest of all, what do I need to apologize for? So I always say to people is if you think the communication code is not really working, it's usually because you've got a lot of baggage from the past that you're bringing into the present. Yeah. Those 4 questions, if you really want to make a relationship work, I've never known anybody really who hasn't been responsive to that level of humility, which says, I realize a lot of this is on me, and I really want to find a way for us to communicate effectively. I'd really love us to have another go. Are you up for it? Now, if there's been abuse and all kinds of things, then the answer may be no. But most people's relationships are just, you reach a place of resigned expectation. It's like, well, it's just the way it is. And we get on and we do whatever. This is basically saying, if you really want to have another go, you can. I did it at a keynote in Manchester, and the guys on the sound desk at the GMX, who they said, "Oi, Mister, I won't do my Manc accent."
Probably not as bad as my London, not as bad as my London accent, anyway.
And they said, "Oi, Mister, can we have a word with you?" I'm like, "Okay." And they said, "We want you to know." There's 3 of them. He said, "We sit here most days and listen to a lot of crap." I mean, that was the polite word of what they said. And I'm thinking, "Okay, this is going to be good." They said, all of us really listened to what you shared on the communication code, particularly the story about the date night that went wrong. And 2 of them said to me, Steve, we think if we'd heard what you shared today 3 years ago, 2 of us might still be married. And it was like, so, we reconcile business partnerships, children, usually I said to people, what's the relationship you would most love to see communication improving? And then apply it to there. So even though it sounds quite simple, you're actually dealing with one of the really complex issues of humanity, which is, how do I actually communicate effectively, particularly in the relationships I would love to be the healthiest they could possibly be?
Yeah, no. That sounds, yeah, I mean, it all makes sense there. It actually is quite a very complex thing. I mean, people bands around the word soft skills for this. I mean, even in the fire service, we thought, well, these are soft skills because the skills is out there in the fire ground. But equally as much as you learn it, because it's teamwork. If the team don't work, the dream don't work. That's the actual kind of quote in the sporting world, if you like, but anywhere really, in the motivation speaking world or wherever. And in fact, even you're giving some evidence here that it's actually hard skills. They're not skills, soft skills. What do you say to that?
I mean, I think basically the digital age, which obviously AI is the next frontier that began with the web. And, I love AI. I mean, it's incredible.
Yeah.
Need regulation. And I always say to people, technology, once there's been a technological invention, you can never undo it.
No, that's right.
It always creates huge fear. So I say, go back to the Gutenberg printing press. And they're like, really? I said, well, you think the people who first printed books in their own language, they burnt those people at the stake and they burnt the books with them. The Industrial Revolution, the Luddites tried to smash the factories. So you're watching a classic reaction against. It's terrifying. It's unknown. We don't. What's the retreat to nationalism and populism? It's fear of the future. So but it's very hard to regulate brand new technology. It usually has to have a chance to run for a while. So why did I say that? Well, the old world, the industrial world, was very much, you could get by on IQ. The person who was most valued and they sold your brain per hour wasn't the nicest person necessarily. It was the person who could process and remember the most amount of data in a strategic way. Yeah. Well, I promise you, there's no human being that can compete with the processing intellectual power of a computer these days, let alone generative AI. Relational intelligence, Dave, I believe, is the skill set of the new world, because relationships are the primary currency of wealth and influence.
Well, that's what it boils down to,
Relational intelligence is not a soft skill. It's really hard. Yeah. But it's not even just a nice to have anymore. It's actually a ticket to play. So remember I said that leaders were saying, how do I lead through influence more than positional power? The ability to build collaborative learning and to harness the superpowers of other people on your team, that is no longer a nice to have. That is a 101 of how leaders and how relationships work. So in a sense, we're never going to be out of work, Dave, in the new world with what we do, because in a sense, hard skills are great, but you have to have those these days. The real winners are those who actually are able to build the networks of relational influence inside and outside their organization and manage the stakeholder relationships that just about every business, enterprise, nonprofit requires, because it's no one person has all the answers anymore. The world is too complex.
Yeah, I know, absolutely there. I think there'll come a time when AI will start designing themselves. No human interaction there at all. So we'd have to really start getting on with each other anyway, won't we? Leave the computers to do what they need to do.
Bill Gates was on a podcast earlier this week I listened to, and he said the key is you can never stop bad people using the technology. Yeah. So, he said the key is to make sure that the good people and the technology and the AI they're building is more powerful than the bad people. Yeah, he said, because if you stop and say, oh, no, we don't like this, then the baddies win. Yeah. So maybe he was advocating a little bit for deregulation of his Microsoft chatbots, but fundamentally,
maybe
you have to let the fast horses run.
Yeah.
Because if we think some of the less savory, shall we say, nations in our world who would happily use AI to disrupt elections or anything else, they're not going to stop because we think that we want to regulate it out of existence. We actually have to embrace the change and make sure that the best are able to use it for the things which actually give us the things that protect what we do. So there's no guarantees, new technology. There's always ups and downs, but you can't disinvent it or bury your head in the sand, because in a sense, that's not an option, and it never has been.
No. Well, it's been a really great pleasure speaking to you today. I think I need to really browse through your book as well and have a look at the many authors that come on my show. And of course, you live in the UK, same as me. So I need to get more UK podcast guests on there anyway as well. I actually been non-stop now, permanently in the UK for 2 years, but I was on and off between, dividing my time, if you like. So I should really have, there's no excuse. But you're in London, you said, or Hempstead or something? I can't remember.
Gerrard's Cross. So
Gerrard's Cross, that's right. Just west of London, that's right, yeah. So I was working in Acton Fire Station, but I worked in Ealing, Hayes. I don't know if is that west enough to where you are?
Ealing is not quite west enough.
Heathrow.
I would say if you think of to our listeners, if you got around the world, if you think of London as like there's an orbital, there's a big circle that goes around it, and think of a clock face. Heathrow is 7 o'clock.
Yeah,
we are 9 o'clock, basically, just outside the M25, which is
so towards Uxbridge that way.
There you go. Uxbridge and Ealing are the two places.
Yeah. Well, I worked in Uxbridge Fire Station a couple of times.
That's 10 minutes from us.
The fire engine, or you call it, or your appliance, nearly slid off it was on Boxing Day. I can't remember what year it was, 2002, I think. Nearly slid off as we came off the slip road on the A40 because we went to a couple of road traffic collisions, 2 cars. We saw 2 car crashes, but they weren't the ones we had to go to. And it was sheet ice on the road. So we had to control ourselves getting to the one that's how we risk our lives, when we go to others, because we're running in while they're running out kind of thing. Well, in a car, you can't run out, But anyway, yeah.
People always think that firefighters deal with fire.
Yeah, no, I've dealt with, yeah.
Oh, turning up at RTAs and other things where you're first on the scene. It's like, I have a huge amount of respect and gratitude for. In America, they would say, "Dave, thank you for your service," and I wish we had more of that.
Americans do come up with some motivational little things like that. But they used to have a bad press in terms of how boastful and brash they are and whatever. But in actual fact, they are ahead in certain areas as well. But. My worst incident was Paddington rail disaster. I wrote a little bit about it in my book, but it's a motivational book, so I kind of turned it around and said, "Look, this is what we was inspired to do, and how we went, and this is life, and how you can, that kind of thing, rather than." But yeah, anyway, okay, well, that's enough of that. But can you just, before we go, we've only got a short time left, about a minute, but tell the audience where they can find your book and more about you and your work.
That's kind. So Amazon is probably the best place to get it. So the communication code, it will appear as if by magic by Jeremie and I. So that's one. I think I saw it came out on Blinkist yesterday as well. So
okay.
That's always a good sign.
Yeah.
And finding me, I always say to people, if you want to hear more about what we do, Steve Cockram on LinkedIn is probably the easiest way to get hold of us. And basically giantworldwide.com is the website for the wider work we do in terms of licensing content. But if anyone's interested in finding out more, always happy to speak to people. And LinkedIn is usually the easiest way to make connections.
Great, fantastic. Well, if we ever cross our paths, I've actually moved more further up. I'm in Northamptonshire now, actually, but I'm in a little middle class town. Well, it's working class actually at first, but it seems to be middle class here now. But I feels like I'm in some little village in the countryside somewhere. But I used to live in Camden, London, which is the total opposite.
Very
so there is some nice restaurants around here, which Camden had as well. But, anyway, if we do, then I'm sure we'll be great to meet in person as well. But in the meantime, thanks a lot, Steve, for coming and having this chat.
Pleasure, my friend. Keep up the great work.
That's all for this episode. Thanks for listening, and remember, if you want to support what we do, then share, subscribe, and leave a review over on Apple Podcasts. Or head over to my website, davepalmer.com, and click on Rate Show. Well, that's all for now, but I'll see you in the next episode of The Dave Palmer Show.
Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.